During World War II, nations were racing to create weapons that could destroy their enemies. In hidden labs, both the Axis and the Allies pushed technological limits, developing devices that seemed more like science fiction than reality. And their brutality? Completely devastating.
They could have launched a one-way attack on America, ditched the bombers in the ocean, dropped us. We certainly didn't have any defenses that would have stopped them.
Some were so advanced, they almost defied scientific beliefs, while others were so complex that even today's experts struggle to understand them. These prototypes, kept in secrecy, had the potential to reshape the world. Yet, despite their power and promise, most never saw the light of day. Instead, they remain hidden in history, offering a glimpse into what might have been. Join us for the 20 lost technologies from World War II that scientists still cannot explain. Let's get right into it. Number 20. The Nazi Bell.
This, some say, was the Wunderwaffe, the wonder weapon. A weapon so powerful, so exotic, that even in the last minutes of the war, as the Soviet army closed in on Poland, could have changed the whole course of the war.
Die Glocke, or the Nazi Bell, remains one of World War II's greatest mysteries. Some believe it was a weapon, others think it could defy gravity. Still, there are claims that this mysterious gadget might have been a time machine. Researcher Igor Witkowski, in his book, suggested that the bell was actually an early attempt at anti-gravity technology.
Things suggest mathematical calculations, for example, that it could have been an effective way to master gravity.
His findings came from declassified World War II-era documents from Poland, which led him to research further. Witkowski described Die Glocke as a bell-shaped object. Inside, it supposedly contained a compound called Cerium-525, made from mercury, beryllium, and thorium. All are materials beyond normal physics. During tests in Lower Silesia, the bell allegedly emitted a glowing blue light. Powerful magnetic fields were said to disrupt electronics, even harming people and animals. Initial tests were disastrous, with several scientists dying. This led Witkowski to believe the bell was designed to manipulate gravity. The spinning cylinders and immense energy suggested it was more than just an electrical experiment. Some believe it could have been an attempt to create a craft capable of anti-gravity flight. When the Third Reich fell, the bell's story vanished, and it's rumored that it was moved to secret locations in Norway, Japan, or even brought to the United States under Operation Paperclip. But no tangible evidence remains, and the mystery remains unsolved. But this is not the only technology from World War II that was lost to history.
Knowing that their powerful U-boats would not be enough to stop the American forces, the Luftwaffe resorted to a wonder weapon that they had disregarded as impossible to develop. It was a rocket-powered suborbital bomber, codenamed Silbervogel.
Number 19. The Silbervogel. The Silbervogel was designed to soar through the upper atmosphere at speeds of over 13,000 miles per hour, with a single mission: to strike New York City. It was conceived by engineers Eugen Sanger and Irene Brett during World War II as a rocket-powered bomber capable of reaching altitudes of 90 miles. In under 2 hours, it could take off from Europe, deliver an 8,000-pound bomb, and return home. The craft's design was a marvel. It defied gravity, using rocket engines to propel it faster and higher than anything seen before. Its wings and fuselage allowed it to glide through the atmosphere, cooling itself during descent. But the heat generated by such speed was too much. The technology to manage it didn't exist. As it turns out, the Silbervogel remained a dream. Sanger's proposal, written in A Rocket Drive for Long-Range Bombers, detailed a weapon capable of reaching space. Post-war, American and Soviet intelligence found the report. The Soviets were astonished by its technical detail, yet, despite its potential, the Silbervogel was never built. The Soviet Union tried, but the project was abandoned in the 1950s. Some believe its design laid the groundwork for future space exploration. However, what could have been a devastating weapon never came to fruition.
The Horten 229 had to be the most exotic piece of machinery in Germany at that time.
Number 18. Horten HO-229. The Horten HO-229 V3 could have changed the future of aviation. The Horten brothers, Reimar and Walter, spent years perfecting their all-wing aircraft concept. Reimar, the designer, and Walter, a fighter pilot, drew inspiration from the failures of earlier aircraft. Their designs led to the V-1, a glider that flew in 1944, and the V-2, a turbojet-powered version. The V-2 flew successfully, though it suffered several setbacks, including crashes and engine issues. The V-3 was closer to reality but never flew. The war ended before it could be completed. The Allies captured the prototype and took it to America for study. The aircraft's potential was never fully realized, and it remains one of history's great what-ifs. Its sleek, tailless design had a wingspan of 55 feet, with no fuselage for smooth contours for speed and stealth. Powered by 2 turbojet engines, it could exceed 600 miles per hour, possibly faster than the Me-262. No aircraft design of the era had anything like it. Some even consider it the first stealth plane. Its smooth, angular form could deflect radar, but later analysis showed no intentional stealth coatings. Despite its revolutionary design, the HO-229 never saw combat. The V-3, the most developed prototype, was discovered by American forces in 1945. Today, its wings are displayed at the Smithsonian. After the war, Reimar moved to Argentina, continuing his research without the resources to achieve his vision. Walter stayed in Germany, serving in the new Air Force. If you think this lost tech was interesting, wait until you see this next one. Number 17. Kugelblitz flak turret. The Germans developed a weapon so advanced it seemed to defy military technology. The Kugelblitz was a mobile, energy-based anti-aircraft system. The turret was fully enclosed in a spherical shell, so that it could rotate in all directions at an astounding speed. It could be powered hydraulically and turn 60 degrees per second. Inside the turret, 2 rapid-fire guns fired at a rate of 425 rounds per minute. Each shot could reach an effective range of over 5,000 meters. It was designed for precision, with gyroscopic stabilization to ensure accuracy even under extreme conditions. But this beast never entered combat. Only a few prototypes were built, and by the time they were ready, the war had already ended. Renato Vesco, a leading researcher of Nazi secret weapons, believes the Kugelblitz may have been tied to the mysterious Foo Fighters. His theory suggests these glowing orbs were guided flak mines, remotely controlled from the ground. Inside them, klystron tubes disrupted aircraft navigation, forcing planes to crash. However, there is a key issue with this theory. No reports mention planes actually crashing after encountering Foo Fighters. The Kugelblitz, the Feuerball, and other globes described by pilots probably explain most of these encounters. But with the destruction of the devices and the lack of surviving records, the full truth remains hidden, just like this next weapon, which remained a concept and never made it to reality.
You can argue that the Earth itself is alive, pulsating with this natural electromagnetic rhythm known as the Schumann resonance.
Number 16. Schumann resonator weapon. In the Cold War, a powerful concept emerged, weaponizing Earth's natural electromagnetic frequencies. These frequencies, known as Schumann resonances, are low-frequency waves created by lightning. They travel through the Earth's ionosphere, resonating at 7.8 Hz. These waves have existed for as long as the planet itself. By manipulating these waves, theorists believed it was possible to disrupt military communications, cripple electronic systems, or even affect human biology by disrupting brain waves and influencing mental states. The implications were staggering. Research into projects like the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program showed that it was possible to manipulate extremely low-frequency waves by heating the ionosphere. But this weapon never materialized, yet the idea remained. Schumann resonances were not supposed to be a natural phenomenon. They held the key to untapped power. For decades, they were studied only for their role in global lightning patterns. But in the right hands, they could control much more. Today, their potential to impact everything from climate research to military defense continues to captivate scientists and theorists alike. Could the Earth's natural frequencies one day be harnessed for control? What started as a simple curiosity-driven question might one day change the way we understand power itself.
This is so cool, man. This is the manned suicide Japanese kamikaze torpedo.
Number 15. Kamikaze Submarine Drone. The kamikaze planes were known for the ruthless attacks during World War II. However, these things were not just in the air, but also underwater. Not many people know about the kamikaze submarine drones, also known as the Chiton. The Chiton was a manned suicide torpedo, designed to strike at the heart of Allied fleets. The Type 1, the first model, was a 48-foot-long nightmare. Inside, the pilot was trapped in a cramped, sealed compartment with no escape. His only mission was to steer the torpedo into an enemy vessel, knowing he would not make it out alive. Its warhead was over 3 times the size of a standard torpedo's. The Chiton had power, but it was plagued with flaws. Control was difficult, and failure was common. Pilots often died before reaching their target. Still, Japan pushed forward, refining the weapon. New prototypes emerged, some with rudimentary AI, hoping for more accuracy. But it was a desperate gamble, one that could not change the course of the war. In November 1944, the Chiton struck. Sekio Nishina piloted a torpedo into the USS Mississiniwa. The explosion was massive, sending flames soaring 100 feet into the air. The ship sank and 63 crewmen perished. But it was a fleeting success. Chiton's flaws could not be overcome in time. Japan's desperation birthed other suicide weapons, like the kamikaze pilots, Oka flying bombs, and Shinyo suicide boats. But despite the cost, they could not stop the overwhelming American offensive, and the technology, though advanced for its time, was far too unreliable to change the course of the war.
Acoustic torpedoes are designed to home in on the noise of propellers, which are located at a ship's stern.
Number 14. Acoustic torpedoes. By the end of World War II, the Allies had seen the devastating power of German U-boats and the staggering loss of merchant ships. With the war over, the U.S. Navy recognized its vulnerability. The threat of submarines was far from over, and new weapons were needed. The solution lay in acoustic technology, hunting submarines by their sound. That is when the Mk-35 torpedo was developed. Unlike traditional torpedoes, which relied on size or speed, the Mk-35 was designed to hunt by listening. It used a special sensor capable of detecting the subtle engine noise of a submarine. Once it locked onto a sound, the torpedo would follow it, relentlessly closing in on the target. What set the Mk-35 apart was its ability to adjust its course mid-flight, to make sure it would strike the submarine, no matter how it tried to evade. It was powered by a unique seawater battery, so it could travel undetected, unlike chemical-powered torpedoes, which left a telltale trail behind. Yet, like all cutting-edge technologies, it was not without its flaws. The Mk-35's own noise, though faint, gave away its position. Submarines, once aware of the incoming threat, could often evade the torpedo with ease. The U.S. Navy learned invaluable lessons from the Mk-35's limitations. In its wake, new torpedoes were developed. Number 13. The Enigma's twin. The Enigma machine is one of history's most well-known ciphers. It was the backbone of German military communications during World War II, which turned ordinary messages into a complex, nearly unbreakable code. But here is the thing. Enigma was not the only secret weapon in the Germans' cryptographic arsenal. There were other machines, ones even more mysterious, almost forgotten. Two of these were the SG-39 and SG-41. Fritz Menzer, a German inventor, created the SG-39 in 1939. It was designed to replace the Enigma with an electric motor-driven system and a cipher so advanced that only a handful of these machines were ever completed. In fact, the SG-39's encryption cycle was more than 15,000 times longer than the Enigma's. But there was a problem. Only 3 units were made. One was incomplete, another had no printing mechanism, and the third was almost entirely useless. Still, this device marked a step into unknown territory, leaving behind a trail of unanswered questions. Then came the SG-41 in 1941. Even more complex than the SG-39, this machine operated with 6 rotating wheels and an unpredictable encryption system. No one really understood how it worked, even after it was put to use by the Abwehr. These machines, buried in secrecy, are now lost to history. And the story is no different for this next technology from World War II either.
In the shadows of World War II, a silent menace lurked beneath the waves. Magnetic mines.
Number 12. Anti-ship magnetic mines. The magnetic mine was a weapon unlike anything the world had seen before. In the early days of World War II, it introduced an invisible danger to the seas. Ships, unaware, would sail right into a minefield, triggering explosions the moment their magnetic signature passed too close. It was the ship's own metal that made it vulnerable. Every vessel had its own magnetic footprint, and the mines were designed to detect that. As the ship moved through the water, the mine would sense the magnetic pull and detonate without a single shot being fired. At first, the Allies had no idea what was causing their losses. Hundreds of ships were sunk in the early months of the war, and it was not until November 1939 that the British discovered a German mine, which gave them the breakthrough they needed. The British, in return, developed a technique to neutralize the mines by an aerial minesweeping method. By 1940, modified Wellington bombers equipped with magnetic coils could fly over minefields, tricking the mines into detonating from a distance. It was not without risk. Flying low and slow over the water left them vulnerable to enemy fighters, but it worked.
There was one idea that seemed crazy, but actually got attention at the highest levels of government. Project Habakkuk.
Number 11. Project Habakkuk. The German U-boats were not only a problem for the USA, but also for the British. The German U-boats were sinking ships and cutting off vital supplies. The Atlantic Gap was wide open, and the Allies needed a solution. That's when Geoffrey Pike, a British scientist, suggested building an aircraft carrier made of ice. He called it Project Habakkuk. Pike's plan was to create a floating fortress using a material called picrete, which was ice mixed with wood pulp. It was stronger than concrete and resistant to torpedo hits. The idea was to build a massive carrier, 2,000 feet long, that could carry planes across the Atlantic to protect convoys. The British were intrigued and tested picrete in Canada at Patricia Lake. The first model was 60 feet long, floating on the icy waters. The science seemed sound, and the military was eager. But as they started scaling up, problems piled up. The construction costs soared, the materials were hard to gather, and the carrier needed a cooling system just to keep it from melting. By 1943, as U-boat attacks slowed and new technologies improved, the project was abandoned. The ice carrier never left the drawing board.
Japan is faced with a serious problem. They can't develop a high-tech weapon, but perhaps a low-tech weapon, like a balloon, could be launched against America.
Number 10. Japanese Fugo bombs. While every nation came up with innovative technologies during World War II, Japan took it to another level. They launched a bizarre plan to bomb the U.S. mainland using high-altitude balloons. These bombs were carried by balloons, part of a secret operation called Fugo. With no way to send bombers over the Pacific, Japan turned to the jet stream, which is a wind current that could carry hydrogen-filled balloons across thousands of miles. Each balloon carried a 30-pound bomb, designed to start fires across America's west coast. Between November 1944 and April 1945, Japan launched more than 9,000 of these bombs. Most fell into the ocean or broke apart mid-flight. But a few made it. They drifted silently until they reached their targets. On May 5, 1945, the first casualties occurred in Oregon. A group of children stumbled upon one of the bombs. Thinking it harmless, they tried to move it. The bomb exploded. 6 lives were lost. 5 of them were children and a pregnant woman. This also happened to be the only instance of enemy action killing civilians on the U.S. mainland during the war. But not all these technologies were so deadly. Some were actually quite helpful, like this next one. Number 9. Infrared night vision. In the early stages of World War II, the Germans pioneered the development of infrared night vision. They focused on infrared technology to improve their ability to fight in low-light conditions. The first-generation systems they produced were bulky and required significant infrastructure, like large infrared searchlights mounted on trucks. These devices were able to amplify existing light up to 1,000 times and allow operators to spot targets in near-complete darkness. However, the technology was far from perfect. The early German systems had limitations, such as short range and significant weight, making them difficult to deploy effectively in combat. One of the most notable developments was the DFS 1942. It was a photoelectric device that became the foundation for infrared night vision. It used a scanning mirror, often referred to as a magic eye, which detected infrared light. The German Luftwaffe used these devices to assist in spotting enemy aircraft during nighttime missions. They also experimented with infrared to guide rockets, though these systems were not fully realized before the war's end. The Allies soon captured and reverse-engineered German infrared technology, leading to their own advancements. These early German infrared systems laid the groundwork for the passive night vision devices that would emerge in later years. Number 8. Rocket bikes. In the early 1930s, Germany was brimming with experimental ideas, especially in rocket propulsion. Among them was a curious attempt to take the humble bicycle and turn it into a rocket-powered machine. This was not a military project, at least not yet. It was a personal venture by a German engineer named Herr Richter, who, in 1931, strapped 12 solid-fuel rockets to a bicycle. He called it the Raketenrad, or rocket bike. Richter's experiment took place on the Abbas racetrack in Berlin. As he lit the rockets, the bike rocketed forward, reaching speeds of 55 miles per hour. But things quickly went off course. The bike became uncontrollable, and Richter was thrown from his seat, only to be spared serious injury. The bike exploded in a fiery mess, ending the experiment in a blaze of failure. But the idea didn't end with Richter. In the pre-war years, there were talks about taking this rocket-powered concept to a more dangerous place, the battlefield. Some military theorists believed that rocket-powered bicycles could be used for sending soldiers into battle at explosive speeds. However, the problems with such a volatile weapon were just too obvious. So, like many other wartime innovations, this idea never went anywhere. This next concept also never made it to reality because of obvious reasons. Number 7. X-ray death ray concepts. The idea of a death ray has fascinated both science fiction writers and military leaders for years. During World War II, Nazi Germany was one of the nations trying to bring such a weapon to life. They worked on 2 radiation-based projects, but neither came to fruition. The concept was inspired in part by Nikola Tesla, whose ideas on particle beam weapons were years ahead of his time. Tesla's Teleforce weapon, which he claimed could unleash concentrated beams of energy, was said to be powerful enough to knock down entire fleets of enemy planes from 200 miles away. Tesla's weapon did not use rays, but instead emitted high-voltage particles, a technique that would later influence charged particle beam weapons during the Cold War. Tesla presented his idea to several nations, including the Soviet Union, which showed the most interest. However, the Nazis, although not directly approached by Tesla, likely researched his work, especially during the Nazi-Soviet cooperation before the war turned. Tesla's Teleforce was never fully developed, but the Germans experimented with similar technologies, which were radiation-based weapons and X-ray systems. Nazi scientists like those at Auschwitz under Dr. Horst Schumann used X-rays not as a weapon for battle but as a tool of control, attempting to sterilize prisoners en masse. While the Nazis never created a functional death ray, their pursuit of radiation-based weaponry reveals how dangerously close they came to unlocking devastating new technologies during the war. Number 6. Weather manipulation experiments. The attempts to control the weather were not new when World War II began. Experiments had been taking place for decades. In the 1830s, meteorologist James P. Espy theorized that convection caused rain. He believed humans could trigger rain by lighting fires in the Appalachian Mountains. Though his ideas were ridiculed, they inspired future attempts. By the late 1800s, Robert St. George Dyrenforth wanted to end droughts with explosives. He used dynamite, kites, and fireworks in Texas. Though his results were inconclusive, his efforts marked the start of a growing obsession with controlling the skies. In the 1940s, the British developed FIDO, a method to clear fog from airfields using large amounts of gasoline. Meanwhile, the U.S. military experimented with cloud seeding using silver iodide and dry ice. These early attempts aimed to influence the weather during wartime, though they lacked consistent success. After the war, these efforts gained traction. In the 1950s, Irving Langmuir believed cloud seeding could control not just rain, but hurricanes. However, these experiments never achieved their grand promises. While this experiment was never successful, the technology I am going to show you next definitely did. But even this was lost to history. Number 5. Panther Tank's Targeting Computer. The Panther tank was one of the most formidable tanks of World War II. Introduced in 1943, it was designed to counter the Soviet T-34. It was armed with a 7.5-centimeter Kampfwagenkanon 42 long-barreled gun, capable of knocking out most enemy tanks from over 1,000 meters away. Its sloped armor provided excellent protection, making it harder for shells to penetrate. But what truly set the Panther apart was its advanced targeting system. The key component was the TZF-12 sight. This advanced analog fire control system allowed the crew to calculate range, wind speed, and elevation. It provided the Panther with an edge in precision shooting. The system was incredibly complex, combining analog dials and lenses. The gunners had to rely on their skill to make adjustments in real time. However, tests on the Eastern Front exposed the limitations of the system. Mechanical failures were common, and adjustments took time. By 1944, the system had been refined. The Panther could engage targets with more consistency than ever before. The fire control system was still analog, but it was one of the most advanced of the war. While not perfect, it provided the German forces with a significant advantage in tank combat. Number 4. Biological communication devices. During World War II, the Japanese military took insect warfare to deadly extremes. General Shiro Ishii, leader of the infamous Unit 731, spearheaded experiments to weaponize insects for biological attacks. Fleas, mosquitoes, and flies were the primary carriers of devastating diseases like the plague and cholera. In 1940, Japan developed the Type 50 Uji bomb, a device designed to release 30,000 plague-infected fleas over enemy targets. The fleas were bred in mass, with a staggering 500 million produced each year. In 1940, Japan launched an attack on Kuzhou in China, infecting the population with the plague through these fleas. The outbreak would continue for years, killing over 50,000 people. Days before Pearl Harbor, another attack was launched on Changte, infecting the area with 100 million fleas, resulting in 7,000 deaths. The U.S. was not far behind. At Camp Detrick, scientists worked with fruit flies and mosquitoes, weaponizing them with various pathogens. They aimed to create a retaliatory capability for the growing biological threats of the time. This dark chapter of experimentation on insects revealed how deadly these tiny creatures could be when used as living weapons of mass destruction. Number 3. Wind cannon. The wind cannon, or wind cannon, was an experimental weapon created by Nazi Germany in the final years of World War II. It was designed to use compressed air to knock down low-flying enemy aircraft. The cannon had a large angled barrel and was powered by a mix of hydrogen and oxygen. When ignited, the resulting explosion shot a jet of compressed air at high velocity. Tests at Hillersleben in May 1945 showed mixed results. The cannon successfully broke a 25mm thick wooden board from 200 meters away. In some trials, nitrogen peroxide was added to the mix to make the air projectile visible, allowing for precise tracking. Despite these promising results, the cannon struggled against fast-moving aircraft. A moving plane's aerodynamics would likely neutralize the effectiveness of the air blast. In a final test, the wind cannon was mounted on a bridge over the River Elbe, but it had little impact. The wind cannon never became a viable weapon. While it proved the potential of compressed air, it was ultimately an impractical solution to the problem of defending against aircraft. Number 2. Remote-controlled Goliath tracked mines. The Goliath tracked mine was a pioneering remote-controlled weapon developed by Nazi Germany during World War II. It was a small tracked vehicle measuring about 4 feet long and 2 feet wide. Weighing around 650 pounds, it was designed to deliver a large explosive charge directly to a target. The vehicle carried between 60 and 100 pounds of explosives, depending on the model. The Goliath came in 2 main versions. The first, the SD KFZ-302, was powered by electric motors and had a range of about half a mile. Its successor, the SD KFZ-303, was powered by a Zundap gasoline engine, which extended the range to nearly 3/4 of a mile. The vehicle could travel at speeds of up to 7 miles per hour. Operators controlled the Goliath using a joystick connected to the vehicle by a cable, which could extend up to 700 meters. The operator would steer it by braking one track to turn and advancing the other. Upon reaching the target, the operator would detonate the charge using a switch on the control box. Despite its innovative design, the Goliath had several drawbacks. Its slow speed made it vulnerable to infantry fire. The control cable could be cut, and its exposed sides left it open to damage. Still, the Goliath was one of the earliest examples of a remote-controlled weapon, which became the groundwork for modern battlefield drones. Number 1. Hitler's Time Phone Project. Nazi scientists pushed the boundaries of physics during World War II, exploring ideas that seem almost ahead of their time. While Albert Einstein's theories were dismissed as Jewish physics, they still made use of some of his concepts. Most notably, they looked into quantum physics, which would later influence modern technologies like quantum communication. One prominent figure in Nazi experimental science was Karl Schaeppler. He proposed a theory based on ether, an unseen medium believed to permeate space. Schaeppler's research suggested that cold energy, or zero-point energy, could be harnessed for revolutionary uses, including propulsion and power generation. He built devices to prove his theory, claiming they could tap into energy that existed in the vacuum of space. In parallel, some Nazi scientists pursued ideas of manipulating gravity through electromagnetic fields. This concept, tied to early research into flying saucers, proposed using energy to counteract gravity. Although these ideas were never fully realized, they signaled an ambition that pushed the boundaries of known science at the time. Though there is no concrete evidence of a time phone or quantum communication program, the Nazis' experiments were certainly speculative. Yet, their focus on manipulating space and time suggests that they were not far off from understanding technologies that could shape the future. Some of these inventions were buried, some stolen, and others quietly erased from history. But all of them came from a time when the race for power pushed science into the unknown. Were they too advanced, or simply too dangerous? You decide. Share your thoughts below. Until next time, stay sharp and never stop questioning what we were meant to forget.